والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to welcome you to our first training of Islamic Advisory Group. Allow me to leave you my simple presentation. And my presentation is about safe motherhood and child care from the Islamic perspective. Just a brief introduction. Those are my names. And my name is Walusimbi, Abdul Hafiz. I'm a senior lecturer in the Department of Sharia, and I'm also the one who is heading that department. At the same time, I'm also the Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Islamic Studies and Arabic Language, and I'm also a visiting lecturer in the School of Law, that is Faculty of Law, especially here at Halal campus. I specialize in Sharia, and I'm always happy to report that I'm a student of Sharia from nursery to PhD. I don't feel that there is any other specialization that I should be happy with than being a student of Sharia. Safe motherhood and child care. In my introduction, you will allow me that I take the lecture method or the presentation method, because time might not allow us to have some kind of interaction. Motherhood is the most significant institution of human society. I think we all agree to that fact. As I look into this congregation, I feel so much honored and humbled that females are constituting the biggest majority. In one way, I feel secure, and in another way, I feel so happy. Because I have a belief that whatever I'm going to present, it is going to land into a fertile ground which is going to disseminate it to other people. So there is no doubt that a mother is so significant in Islam. The mother is so important in Islam. But at the same time, that one shouldn't mean that we fathers, including the presenter, that we are less important. We are also important because you cannot arrive to the institution of motherhood. You cannot arrive to the honor of being a mother without the intervention of the father. It doesn't matter the way you have reached there. As students of medicine, you know the advancement in science and technology, especially when it comes to artificial insemination. That these days, corporate women like you might say that I'm not comfortable to have a physical being called a man. So what do? You go to the sperm laboratory, you choose the sperm of your choice, you get impregnated with it, and at the end of the day you celebrate that you are a mother. I know that that is also possible, but you know it is artificial, and artificial shall always remain artificial. You need a man in your life. At the same time, I wish to establish that you are very, very most important. The second point is, once we establish the fact that you are important, it therefore goes without saying that we must ensure that your safety, your security is guaranteed. That is why we are making that point that as far as Islamic law is concerned, the safeguards, the security, the protection that Islam conferred upon a mother, it is beyond measure. The unfortunate part of it is, many ladies, including the Muslims, they actually don't appreciate that protection. That is why you find the very Muslim women going against the Islamic injunctions. When, for instance, Islam says that you should cover your body, why should you fight? Yet, as a student of medicine, when you find food at the table which is not covered, you don't want to take it for fear that it might have been contaminated. Isn't it? So if you are worried about the food being contaminated, why are you not worried about your body going out naked so that people can exploit it? So in this case, that's why you will see Islamic safeguards to the mother, to the child, being traced far away before even marriage. As we talk now, I don't know whether I'm addressing some of you are already married, but I think this is the right time to prepare you for motherhood. Because once we prepare you earlier than that, by the time you get there, you already have the knowledge. You're already at the right page. So, even it goes through a certain legal framework of marriage. And this is a point that I would like to emphasize, my dear sisters. Gentlemen, I salute you, but since you are few, I cannot recognize you. Let me concentrate on the sisters. If you want the rights to come to you, I happen to be a student of law. And in law there is a principle which says that equity only goes to those who come with safe hands, with clean hands. If you want to claim for your protection, if you want to claim for your security, you can only and only claim for it as a woman when you are in the right and legal framework. The challenge we have is, you want Islam to protect you, yet you have already disobeyed Islam. And that is not possible. Because you can't claim a right from a wrong. So whatever we are going to talk about, it must be interpreted and looked at within the framework of marriage. So, because you are significant, because you are important, Islam decided that the relationship between you and the child should be untouchable. It should be very strong through pregnancy, delivery, breastfeeding, even up to the level of child rearing. So we need now to look at significance of the mother and the child. We have already made a point that you are significant. And maybe let me also add, women, you are very difficult machines to operate. But we can't do without you. So, you are a necessity. Whether we want it or not, we must live alongside with you. But I think you also recognize it within yourself that you are very difficult people to deal with. But we have no choice but to do that. So, having said that, the mother in Islam is the best life companion. If you are given a choice between taking your father as a companion and your mother as a companion, there is no doubt that you shall choose the mother. By the way, that is not only applicable to you as girl children, even us. Some of us, away from our fathers, if you don't see your father around because you fear that he might be angered, you say, my mom is my hero. You don't say that in the presence of the father for fear that the next step he might not give you school fees if you are still going to school. But that is the fact. You know that story of the man who came to the prophet and asked, Ya Rasulallah, man ahaqqu nas bi husni suhbati. O the Messenger of Allah, tell me in life, who is that person that I should keep so close in companionship? What did the prophet say? Your mother. Second time, your mother. Third time, your mother. The fourth one, your father. That is our consolation as fathers. So we only appear in terms of importance and significance in the children's life at the fourth slot. You have the 3 slots. But my question always is, you know, in Sharia, our Sharia is a Sharia of obligations and rights. You have this divine right that when you call a child or when the child is called to you, that child has to attend to you 3 times before he could attend to the father. My question is, how best have you utilized that right? In other words, if Islam has made the child so close to you to such a close proximity, how have you utilized that? I happen to come from a polygamous background, and the challenge is, whenever one wife has a misunderstanding with the father or the husband, you start passing over those misunderstandings to the child. But you have a lot that you can put into this child to make him a better person. You know, sometimes we have a lot of trust in our mothers, unlike our fathers. That is what Islam based on, to ensure that you as the mother to be, you as a woman, you are the life companion. Not only that, but you know that when we are still young, we used to sing and repeat that hadith, Al-Jannah tahta aqdami al-ummahat. Isn't it? That if you want to get Jannah, seek it beneath the feet of the mother. What does that one mean? By the way, that's why you find in the stories of the companions, whenever they lost their mothers, they would cry and wail profusely. Why? Because they would say, my door to the Jannah has been closed. Now look at that position that Islam has put you to. So, if we look at the mother as such, then we turn to the child. Today you are a child, tomorrow you are a mother. How do you take the relationship between you and your parents? In this .com era, you have that serious challenge. The moment you attain 18, you don't want to hear any commandments from the mother or the father. You say, I am mature, I'm above 18, yes, I can do it for myself, and so on and so forth. It is until when you find a setback in life, that's when you remember to go back to the parents. But that is too bad. Look at yourself from now as the successor of your mother's legacy, the successor of your father's legacy. As I'm making this presentation, and this presentation maybe it is put on the live stream on the various social media channels, when my father sees me there, he says, that is my child. When the father or the mother or the parents send you to study here, any credit that you register, that is their happiness. That is their celebration. It also goes without saying that any dent, any misbehavior, any indiscipline that you conduct yourself in any way, it also goes back to the blackmail of your parents. And sincerely, you cannot afford that. Our parents have passed through what is enough. Enough pain, the psychological, the physical, the mental, and so on. We cannot afford to harm them anymore after we have attained puberty. So look at yourself from today, if I have not yet been looking at yourself as such, as the one who is carrying the legacy of your father, the legacy of your mother. As you get out of campus, as you graduate, look at yourself as a person who is carrying the flag of your parents. So that all those people out there, the moment they look at it, they say, this is the daughter of Hadia so-and-so. This is the daughter of Hadia so-and-so. And in that way, we can ensure continuity and prosperity. You are the preservers of our honor. In other words, my father sees his honor in me, and I'm also seeing my honor in my child. And that's why, by the way, if you see the parents acting in such a way that you feel they are too much on you, please have a second thought and tolerate them. They don't want you to make any mistake. Because any slight mistake you commit goes back to the record of the parents. Next. That's why we need to look quickly at the Islamic guarantees on the motherhood before pregnancy. Before pregnancy, as we can look at you now, because I know the rules of education of the university don't allow you to conceive, at least except when you are married. Islam prescribes that you should take a good choice of a prospective mother. You know, a good choice. Selection level. Of course, since I'm addressing mothers to be, think about a good choice of a prospective father. And I think this is where, my dear sisters, this is where we commit a mistake. As much as you are still here, you have a lot of freedom. You have a lot of choice to make for the father today. But many times, we actually abuse this freedom and right. I understand I cannot penetrate into your minds and hearts, but I think I can guess, I can make a big guess that at least you have someone now in your mind. You have someone. You have started dreaming about it. You have started thinking about the future. So is the gentleman. There are those young ladies now who are giving you sleepless nights. And at the same time, you start SMSing them. You know, you cannot catch the sleep. Then he asks why, because I'm much thinking about it. The question is, what is the criteria of that choice? It is at this time that you are signing your contract. That among all people in the whole world, this is the one I have taken as a choice as the father of my children. So be mindful about the characteristics. Be mindful about the personality of that person. Islam has given your father a right, especially you young ladies, has given a right to the father to come and question, says, Hadija, can I have a look? Can I know the person who is taking you away? You say, none of your business. Oh yes, none of your business. You might not say it as loud as that, but you have said it in your mind. How does that concern you? Now, when the father insists that he wants to know, at the end of the day you produce the guy, and the father made that the mother are not satisfied. They say, Hadija, among all people, Asiata among all people. You know what the answer is? That leave me alone. Love is blind. But I'm telling you that when your love becomes blind now, it will never open its eyes again. So you rather open your eyes, even if by the way you need the glasses to have a clear look. It is at this time. Because you are talking about motherhood, you are talking about childhood. The moment you take a bad choice here, don't blame. On our side as gentlemen, the Prophet ﷺ has advised us. He said that when you are taking a choice of a woman who is going to be the mother of your children, then 4 issues. You get it? He talked about the dignity, he talked about the wealth, he talked about the money, the family. At the end of the day, says that father be that indeed. Go with the religious. Taribat yadak. You will be among the successful. You shall never regret. But you know, even at our level, especially past adolescence, we happen to be in that kind of laziness and madness. Our concentration is on the lips, I don't know how, I don't know what, and so on. I happen to be a lecturer of Islamic family law. So I was engaging my students. Tell me about the characteristics of your choices. One young man said, Doctor, to me, the sitting arrangement. Then I asked, what do you mean by the sitting arrangement? That I don't know the bumps, I don't know the what. My dear, the so-called sitting arrangement, you can only and only enjoy it within a few times. Isn't it? And by the way, as time passes by, it becomes usual. Isn't it? It becomes usual. So many times you confuse between the newness and, is it new or it is good? And in many cases, if you have just seen something, because it is new, you think it is what? It is good. But as time passes by, it's not. So, that is the emphasis. The girl child, safety. Islam has talked a lot about your safety as a girl child. Prohibition of the infanticide, you know that the Arabs used to have that culture of killing their female children. Allah prohibited it. وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنبٍ قُتِلَتْ. Number 2, the girl child status in the family. By the way, I'm a parent. And among the things that I'm so proud of, my firstborn is a girl. And the Prophet ﷺ made a mention of that. One of the signs of blessings in the family is to have the first child as a girl child. So look at all that kind of status. It also goes without saying that because you are so important as a girl child, that's why we must open our eyes. We must restrict you. We must restrict your troubles. We cannot afford to let you loiter around, wander around without security, without protection. And if there is anything that you should never trust when you are alone, it is me, it is these people. You get my point? It is me, it is these people. Sometimes as we are here, you say discussion past midnight. You know the Prophet has already told us everything. The male and the female shall never isolate in such a situation that there is no anybody who can access them except the third one is Shaitan. You want it or not? And never convince yourself that you are stronger than Shaitan. You get my point? You cannot be stronger than Shaitan. At the beginning, the first sitting, you say it is usual, it is the normal discussion. The second one is people massaging around your thighs. The third one, let us go. At the end of the day, you are landed into a problem. So that's it. That's why we cannot afford to allow you move along. Look at your dress code. When I am coming here, I have no problem to appear as such because I'm a man. But look at the way how Islam has designed your hijab. Please don't abuse it. It is your honor. It is your protection, it's your dignity. That's why you are not allowed even to isolate with members of the opposite sex, as I have said. Also, emotional security before marriage. You know, we have had some cases in some communities and societies whereby a girl child is forced to get married to a man of not her choice. Islam has prohibited that in black and white. You have a right to stand firm before your parents and say, this is not the man of my choice. That is it. There is a very clear precedent about that, whereby a young woman was married off without her consent. She went to the Prophet to petition and complain. The Prophet told her, you have a choice to cancel this marriage or to stay in it. That lady was called Khansa. Khansa said, I have consented to this marriage. But I wanted the men out there to know that they do not have the right to force us to marry men of not our choices. Why that? As students of medicine, I know that you know the big role that is played by our emotional sector, our mental sector. If we were emotionally not okay, it can even affect your physiology, isn't it? That's why Islam says, go into the marriage when you have consented. We should also give you some kind of dowry. That dowry is made to add value to you, that you are a darling. You know, Allah has created money and you know money, money, money. The moment you are given money, somehow, somewhere, even your heart softens. Isn't it? So, that is the essence. So you are going into an institution of motherhood when you are prepared, when you are celebrating. Now, if you look at that and compare with the opposite, when you are going to this institution, you are not consented. You get it? You are getting there when you are forced. Sometimes you are even crying. What will happen? Are you going to be a good mother? These are, by the way, the situations whereby you see a woman producing and she transfers the anger to the child. She doesn't care about the child because she hates the father. So this is the point that Islam comes from. Also, the choice to conceive. Once you get married, I think there should be some kind of dialogue with your husband about the right time to become pregnant. I understand some of you have passed through this marathon of medical school. 4 years in school, I don't know you have internship, I don't know you have clerkship. After marriage, you feel that I should enjoy before pregnancy, isn't it? So you move around, you go into the outings, you go to the beaches. That is fine because after marriage, it is a choice between you and your husband. When you find my colleague Sheikh Umar, who is seated here, is going to present to you, you know, sometimes they say that it is my right to be this children. I want the Ummah of Prophet Muhammad to be big. Tell him this. We have the right to agree on the right time of conceiving. Why is it like that? You should conceive at the time when your body is ready. When you really feel that you want the what? The child. So that by the time that child comes, it is a celebration, it is not a curse, it's not an abuse. Also at the same time, don't be an extremist. You are married. First year, I'm still enjoying. Second year, I'm still enjoying. Third year, my dear, you want my family to start doubting in my manhood, whether I am potential or not. So that's why it should be a dialogue. It should be an understanding between the two. You get my point there? And in order to prepare you for motherhood before pregnancy, that's why the Prophet gave us the beautiful dua before conjugal relations. Allahumma jannibna shaytan wa jannib shaytan fima razaqtana. So before you could produce a child, you need to safeguard this child from the effect of shaitan. So those are some of the guarantees. Now, during pregnancy, Islam has called for the general care for the mother. In Surah Al-Ahqaf, حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهَنًا عَلَى وَهَنٍ. Allah says, this woman has carried the child, burden after a burden, weakness after weakness. When Islam brings that one out through Quran, it's simply giving us a call to take good care of you, especially during pregnancy. Because you know the frustration, the disappointment, the illness that you pass through. Now, relaxation of rules of a pregnant mother. That's why in Sharia, by the way, when you are pregnant, the Sharia rules happen to relax. If your pregnancy is at a certain advanced stage, Islam allows you to combine the prayers. You might be somehow strong at Dhuhr time, but you feel you shall be weak at what? At Asr. You can combine, perform Dhuhr and Asr, so that at Asr you can relax. Why? Because Islam is looking at your situation. That's okay. But maybe you shouldn't make it a routine that every day you are combining. Because you know, in Salah Kitaban Mawquta. Salah has prescribed times. Also, ensuring halal feeding during pregnancy. This goes to you as mothers. We as fathers, we have an obligation to look for a good income from halal, isn't it? And by the way, it is also an obligation to tell us, to give us an advice for what we call wasiyah. When your man is setting out, telling him, I employ you, I urge you to look for the risk which is halal. You know, don't just be mindful about how much the man is bringing without a concern, how did he get it? Why? At your pregnancy, whatever you are consuming, it is having a bearing to your child. So don't just take it for granted. So much so that even the environment surrounding you, it might affect the child. I have a story here, which is actually an authentic story. It is reported that a young boy, that boy was around, let's say below 10, he was caught stealing a fruit from a certain garden. So the owner of the garden brought that boy to the Prophet ﷺ to complain. And you know in Islam, that child is not liable because is still young. You get it? But the Prophet never concluded the case at that level. He said, may you please call for me the mother of this child. The mother was presented. The Prophet asked, for God's sake, what did you do when you were carrying this child in your uterus or your pregnancy or in your womb? The woman confessed, Ya Rasulullah, one time I was passing around that garden, I felt hungry and I plucked a certain fruit out of it. You see the effect? So, that's it. So during pregnancy, be mindful about the halal. You rather take it little, but it is halal. I also happen to be a lecturer of Islamic economics. And in Islamic economics, we say that the concept of barakah, the concept of blessing, should always be much, much upheld. My dear sister, my dear brother, accept to take little, which is halal. The little which is halal and it is having blessings, it is far, far better than a lot and a lot which is haram. So be mindful at that stage. Islam also suspends punishments during pregnancy. If at all a mother happens to commit a crime and that crime attracts a punishment in Islamic law, we should not exercise the punishment on her, because that punishment can affect an innocent child. You get it? Even if, by the way, that child has been conceived from haram means. There is a story of a woman who committed zina, and she conceived. So she came to the Prophet and confessed and said, I am even carrying this child. The Prophet said, go back until you deliver. Much as this is a bastard that she's carrying, but this is a life. This is an innocent life. Until when the woman goes back and she delivers, then she comes back and says, Ya Rasulullah, I have delivered and you can see the child. The Prophet said, go back until you wean her. You breastfeed, and the child is no longer in need of your breastfeeding. The woman went back like that. That story confirms the too much regard and guarantee given in motherhood during pregnancy. And finally on this page, liability on attack that can lead to miscarriage. If at all there is any scuffle, any misunderstanding between you and another person, and that person strikes in such a way that it leads to miscarriage, that person is liable. He must pay what we call blood money. He must pay what we call diya, because it has spoiled a life. After pregnancy, there is a lot of rules that are relaxed. There is Islam requires that a woman her accommodation is guaranteed, as is found in Surah Halal. Then prohibition of separating a mother from a child. There is always that tension and misunderstanding. After producing, the child belongs to who? You get my point? The child belongs to who? That question might not arise as long as you are in understanding with the gentleman, isn't it? Until when there is a misunderstanding that is almost leading to divorce. That's when you say, I'm going with my child. As if you come with this child from your home. You get it? I'm going with my child. Did you come to my home with that child? Or you brought that child from my home? So, whose child is it? Islam has hit a midpoint. It has, Islam hit a balance. A balance between fatherhood and motherhood, especially after separation. During separation, or after separation, anyway, before we even reach there, it is on record that the Prophet said that may Allah's curse be upon any person who separates a mother from the child. Look at my point? That is the statement. But as we are saying, yes, we have taken the day, we also wait for the obligation. The only reason why Islam doesn't want to cut off the relationship between you and the child, because you have the role of guiding that child. You get the point? So having said that, Islam does not allow separating a child from the mother. I'm a student of also Islamic international humanitarian law. That is the law of war. How does Islam look at war? There is an incident whereby the Prophet sent some of the commanders to go and fight. At the end of the day, they were fighting behind a certain water body, say a river. They came after some days. and they have carried some captives. Those were days of captives. Among them, there was a female who was shouting at the loudest of her voice, crying, until when this woman said, I want to see Muhammad. She's not even saying Prophet Muhammad. I want to see Muhammad who sent you. The Prophet said, give her audience. She came closer. The Prophet asked, why are you crying? The woman said, I'm not complaining because I am a captive. I'm complaining because your commander has captured me and made me leave my child behind. That is the mother. You get it? That is the mother. I don't see in that story the father complaining as such. You get it? That is the mother. And you know what the Prophet said? He called the commander and said, go back and bring that child. Yes, she's a captive, but she has a right to stay with her child. You get my point? All that is Islamic, what? Islamic guarantees. Also, postnatal care, after pregnancy or after producing, you have to go through the postnatal care. Breastfeeding. Whenever I talk about breastfeeding, sometimes I become emotional and weak. Especially in this era, when you young ladies, you don't have time to breastfeed this new generation. What are the excuses? You don't want your good breast to turn into like a soaking. You get it? But if your mother has made for you a favor and breastfed you, why don't you carry on with the same favor? You get my point? So, part of the Islamic concern after pregnancy is breastfeeding. That's why you could see والوالدات يرضعن أولادهن حولين كاملين لمن أراد أن يتم الرضاعة. It is prescribed upon you to breastfeed for 2 complete years. That is if all factors are constant. You get my point? But the business we are seeing in the so-called corporate ladies, including the medics, is that you don't have time for breastfeeding. You know, after breastfeeding, maybe you have been given that leave, maybe of 3 months, even earlier than 3 months, you send the child to the grand. That is your mother. What do you send the child with? A packet of the so-called artificial milk. Powdered milk, isn't it? Of which, by the way, you don't even know the source. You know? Do you know where it was made from? You can only look at the list of ingredients and satisfy yourself. I don't know, calcium, this one, but who told you? Were you there when they are mixing? You get my point? But as far as Islam is concerned, let me just give you one. Breastfeeding, and medical students, you know it. It is not only contributing to the physiological growth of the child, but also to the development of the child's faculties. When I talk about faculties, I mean the faculties of speech. If you see someone as eloquent, as elaborate, that one might be accurate to the fact that that one breastfed 2 years. Just like you get my point? I remember some time back when I was already grown up, when I was even moving, after some breaks I could go to my mother and I said, I want to breastfeed. And she was so honest, she was so, how do you call it, merciful and kind to offer it. What's the problem? You get it? The Prophet ﷺ was so elaborate. And Abu Bakr one time said, Ma ra'aytu afsaha minka ya Rasulullah. All the Prophet of Allah, I have never seen someone who is elaborate and eloquent like you. The Prophet said, when do you wonder? I am a born of Quraysh, that is my tribe. I breastfeed from the people of Banu Sa'd. Meaning that the Prophet is attributing eloquence to breastfeeding. So how can you afford to deny your child that service? You get my point? So, relaxation during, if there is a, how do you call it, relaxation, purification of a male child is urine. You know, in Islam, when the child is a male, and that child has not yet started feeding on this soft food, and that child urinates on you as a mother, you just wash or you purify by sprinkling water. You don't have to dip it. Why? To simplify life. You know, women's children urinate a lot, isn't it? So, if I have just urinated, you go back and wash, you will even become frustrated. You will not have interest in rearing that child. Right to custody, I had already talked about it. When things don't go as desired, Islam decides that the child should stay in your hands. Mental health care, the mother's psychological state has a lot to do with fulfilling her duties in the family. I've already talked about that. Islam calls for psychological and emotional harmony. That's what Allah says, and live with them in kindness. It is on this point that I want to say at the loudest of my voice that any form of domestic violence against women is prohibited in Islam. Whether you are talking about physical violence that involves beating, kicking, slapping, and so on, it has no way in Islam. Whether you are talking about financial violence or economic violence, that because I'm not in terms with you, I'm not going to leave with you money that you are going to use in order to run the home, is prohibited. Whether you are talking about sexual violence, but sexual violence is more on your side. When we are not in agreement, you say tonight you will not see me. You know, but all these forms of violence are prohibited. Now, Islam prohibits any oppression to mothers, and I have already said that. As we go child care, and I think this is our last slide, the child in Islam, his life, her life, its life has to be taken care of comprehensively. Emotionally, we need to give our children the basic treatment. Isn't it? Emotionally, I have already told you that Islam prescribes that the child should stay with the mother until maturity. Emotionally, the Prophet, peace be upon him, made some demonstrations to the children to show how much emotional care that we should extend to children. Let me just give you two. One, the Prophet, by the time of his death, he was only survived by one daughter. That daughter known as Fatima, isn't it? But at the time when the Prophet was on deathbed, you know, and by that time, by the way, Fatima was already married to Ali. But he called her. He whispered to her. You know whispering? I always ask my audiences, you are here. How many times has your father whispered? How many times has your father whispered to you? A lot. Sorry? A lot. A lot. Yes. Congratulations. Thank you. You get it? Congratulations. But if you are coming from traditional African families like mine, are we together? Drawing your ear closer to the father, you must have a second phone. Maybe he wants to write. You get my point? Why? Because the situation created between us and children is a situation of fear. You say, come here. You get it? Now, if the child is living in that kind of fear, you think he will bring the ear closer. You get it? But the Prophet is showing us the best demonstration by calling Fatima and says, draw your ear closer. He whispered. The first whisper made Fatima to cry out. She cried out. So when the Prophet saw that she's emotionally broken, called her again. He whispered the second. And she ran into a lot of excitement. She was so happy. Now here is the jealous of women. Aisha, the Prophet's wife, wanted to know what the two whispers were about. You get it? So she followed her and said, Fatima, tell me. You see, Aisha is the wife, Fatima is the daughter. And that competition is always there, isn't it? Especially when this daughter is not a child of this mother. But look at how Aisha, sorry, how Fatima has been brought up. Wallahi, whenever I remember that statement, I ask myself, can we have a generation of young female children like Fatima? She said, Lam akun liufshiya sirra Rasulullah. I'm sorry, Aisha, I'm not going to reveal the secrets of the Prophet of Allah. What happens to our children? Can they get our secrets? By the way, before they could even ask them, they have already seen them. Isn't it? Now, the Prophet passed on. After passing on, Aisha still was not settled. She followed, tell me. Until Fatima said that now is dead and the first whisper was, the Prophet told me, I don't see myself living longer about you. That one made her cry out. Then the second was, don't worry, you are likely to be among the first people to join me in Jannah, and you are going to be among the big ladies. Say that you are in Jannah. So he said, that one made me so much excited. The point is, look at the emotion of God. You know, sometimes our children cry and you say, you cry, when you get tired, you will get. Listen, you cry, it is up to you. My dear, the tears of a child have to be evaluated, assessed, and checked very well. You get it? Sometimes the child is just crying. In Uganda, we call it tears. Are we together? But if you see that these are genuine tears, please attend to her. Attend to it. If you don't, you are training this child to be hard-hearted. That when people cry, nobody cares. So this is the kind of a child that you are sending to the society. You get the point? So, that's it. The case study I have given you, spiritually, Islam has taught us how we take care of the children. You get my point? Adhan. What is the philosophy of Adhan? What message does Adhan send into the ears of a newborn? The Prophet says, "Ma min mawludin illa wa yulad ala al-fitra." We are all born on the natural disposition of Tawheed. Isn't it? So the message of Allahu Akbar, as the first one to penetrate the ears, is confirming. You get my point? Akika. Why do you make this Akika celebration? Unfortunately, Akika now is substituted, I don't know, with birthdays, parties. Isn't it? But Akika is very easy. That is a ceremony to welcome this child, so that the child can have a feeling that I am welcome. You get it? I am welcome. Another one is prescription of Salah. That's why also Islam says that start introducing Salah in the life of this child. By experience, I can tell you, it's very, very difficult to deal with a person who doesn't pray. If you are not praying regularly, you also know that you are difficult to deal with. Are we together? It is very, very difficult to deal with a person who doesn't pray. That's why Islam says introduce Salah at an early stage. Health is not without saying. We need to care about the health of our children. Circumcision is part of it. Shaving is part of it. Economically, we need to provide the basic what? Necessities. Next, Umar. So this brings me, dear ladies and gentlemen, to the conclusion of my presentation. The simple summary is, there should be a lot that we can learn out of this. The simple summary is, you have attended, take the message to those who have not attended. The simple summary is, if this presentation is to impact on society, you should be the first person to benefit. I thank you. Assalamu alaikum.